This time on Scott's Adventures, we're going to visit the Dead Sea Scrolls at the Reagan Library in Simi Valley. The Dead Sea Scrolls represent a journey through human spirituality, resilience, and the enduring quest for meaning, with over 200 ancient artifacts and 8 original scrolls. A 7th century Jewish building, likely a synagogue, was unearthed near Jerusalem's Temple Mount. It featured 4 red-painted, 7-branched menorahs, offering insight into early Muslim-era Jewish life in Jerusalem. This artifact is a plastered wall fragment decorated with painted menorah. A remarkable mosaic floor unearthed near Jerusalem's Byzantine southwest gate features a Greek inscription quoting Psalm 118, 6-7. This mosaic, with its biblical inscription and location on the path to Bethlehem, exemplifies how the Holy Land pilgrimage gained significance after Constantine legalized Christianity. In 1986, a severe drought led to an extraordinary discovery in the Sea of Galilee, the remains of an ancient fishing boat dating back to the 1st century. Nicknamed the Jesus Boat, this ancient vessel measured 8.2 meters long. While not directly linked to Jesus, it provided invaluable insight into the maritime life of the time. The boat was built with both local and imported wood, representing the typical fishing vessel of the era. During the 1st century, the Sea of Galilee was a vibrant hub of activity under Roman rule. This period, part of the larger Second Temple area, saw a unique blend of Roman influence and traditional Jewish life in the region. Recent technological advances have revolutionized Dead Sea Scroll research. Modern scientific methods like microscopy, spectroscopy, carbon-14 dating, and DNA analysis provide new insights into the scroll's materials and origins. John Trevor set up a makeshift darkroom to produce the first images of the Dead Sea Scrolls that were sent via airmail to his mentor William Foxwell. This letter from Professor W.F. Albright, containing his first reaction to the images of the great Isaiah scroll. In 2009, archaeologists working in the ancient town of Magdala made a discovery that would revolutionize our understanding of Jewish religious life in the 1st century Galilee. During excavations of a synagogue dating back to the time of Jesus, they unearthed an intricately carved limestone artifact, now known as the Magdala Stone. The Magdala Stone is a remarkable artifact that likely served as a piece of ceremonial furniture for Torah scrolls. Its intricate carvings feature detailed relief of the Jerusalem temple, including what is believed to be the earliest known synagogue depiction of the temple menorah.
3 jars, each with a unique story from the ancient past, and inside one, our closest written connection to Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. Welcome to the ancient land of Israel, the biblical land of milk and honey, at the crossroads of Africa, Asia, and Europe, an archaeologist's paradise. Thousands of years ago, this land was the cradle for religious traditions that helped shape Western civilization, a world we would know little about were it not for artifacts like this. This simple jar holds secrets. Notice the tiny impression, belonging to the king, in ancient Hebrew with a royal seal. This object transports us back nearly 3,000 years to the time of the legendary First Temple built by King Solomon. This was ancient Israel's golden age. Within centuries, Babylonians would overrun the land, burying jars like this under layers of destruction. But remarkably, the people, their history, and biblical Israel would persist and even thrive. Now, we stand beneath Jerusalem's famous Western Wall, built by King Herod and his successors when Jerusalem and the Temple became a focal point for pilgrimage. This limestone jar, elaborately carved out of a single chunk of stone, may have held water used by worshippers at the Temple Mount 2,000 years ago. A jar from the very place the New Testament tells us Jesus walked to reach the temple. Today, the Western Wall is nearly all that remains of this once proud shrine, destroyed by Romans in 70 CE. Behold the Dead Sea in the Judean desert, nearly 1,400 feet below sea level, the lowest point on Earth. It's here that one of the greatest archaeological discoveries occurred. The year was 1947. A young Bedouin goat herder, chasing a stray, threw a rock into a cave near the Dead Sea. The sound of shattering pottery echoed back. Inside, he found parchment scrolls with ancient Hebrew writing, more valuable than any treasure he could have imagined. Finding ancient writing is truly miraculous. Most parchment and paper disintegrate over time, but here, in the dry caves at Earth's lowest point, these scrolls survived for 2 millennia. This discovery led to finding over 900 scrolls in nearby caves, all hidden as Romans destroyed Jerusalem. We call this vast library the Dead Sea Scrolls. Among these was the oldest known copy of the Ten Commandments, predating existing versions by over 1,000 years. This find offers unprecedented insight into the foundational texts of Judaism and Christianity, while also shedding light on the shared scriptural heritage that extends to Islam. Today, we use cutting-edge technology to unlock these ancient text secrets. Multispectral imaging reveals previously invisible text, while DNA analysis of the parchment provides clues about the scroll's origins. It all began here, inside Cave 1, along the Dead Sea shores, where the oldest surviving Hebrew Bible texts emerged from centuries in hiding, with the simple shattering of a clay jar.
The authors of the Dead Sea Scrolls were intimately familiar with Jerusalem. Some likely lived in the city at one time. Many scrolls mention both the contemporary city and the messianic visions of it in a perfect future age. For these writers, the city was polluted and profane. It was a place from which they had spiritually and physically withdrawn because of its religious corruption. We are now entering the scroll gallery, where the 8 authentic Dead Sea Scrolls are displayed. These scrolls were discovered in 11 caves surrounding an ancient site between 1947 and 1956. They were the result of painstaking work. Each scroll was meticulously pieced together from a collection of thousands of fragments found in these caves. You may notice the dim light and carefully controlled environment. These conditions are essential for preserving these delicate documents. The scrolls written in Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic represent nearly every book of the Hebrew Bible. Their fragility requires a careful preservation protocol. Each scroll is displayed for just 3 months before being returned to a dark, controlled environment for at least 5 years. Among the Dead Sea Scrolls, Deuteronomy is the second most frequently found book after Psalms, with a total of 33 copies found, representing almost every chapter of Deuteronomy. About 18 copies of Exodus were found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, with the book frequently quoted in non-biblical scrolls. Scribes wrote these texts in Paleo-Hebrew script, typically reserved for books believed to be directly dictated by God to Moses. Early archaeologists and scholars were certain that the scrolls' authors lived here, studying and copying and composing religious writings. There is too much variety in the scrolls, and they are too numerous to have been written by a single small community. The Dead Sea Scrolls contain more copies of Psalms than any other biblical book, with 39 manuscripts found. The displayed text is part of the most substantial Psalms copy, comprising several sewn leather sheets discovered rolled up. Okay, so this is the Ten Commandments section.
I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall not swear falsely by the name of the Lord, for the Lord will not clear one who swears falsely by his name.
The Ten Commandments scroll, found in Cave 4, is composed of 2 sheets of leather that bear the text from Deuteronomy and include the Ten Commandments. This is not a typical biblical scroll, as it seems to only have contained excerpts from the book of Deuteronomy.
Or his field, or his male or female slave, or his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol, any likeness that lives in the heavens above or on the earth below. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor.
Mohammed Hassan, 1947. I was tending a flock of 55 in the wilderness. I came upon a cave with its entrance open at the top. Every time I threw a stone in, I would hear breaking pottery. In the cave, I found pottery jars. I began to break the jars with my staff, thinking I would find treasure. In the first 9 jars, I found little seeds of reddish color, and nothing else. When I broke the 10th jar, I found some rolled leather with scrawling on it. I kept the leather with me until I returned home. An uncle of mine asked to show it to a dealer in Bethlehem to see if it might be of any value. John Trevor writes, Sleep was almost impossible that night. Numerous questions flooded my mind. How long was the large scroll? How much of Isaiah was there? Could it be authentic? But how could such a perfect manuscript be that old? Out of sheer exhaustion, I fell asleep, still arguing with myself. Father Roland DeVoe writes, In 1952, we restricted our research to the rock cliffs and did not examine the terrace stretching in front of them. In this, we erred. 6 months later, the Bedouin returned and discovered a cave hollowed out in the terrace containing an immense number of manuscript fragments. Maurice Belay writes, Totally disheartened, I began work on this jumble. There were 1,659 fragments in my batch. This tedious work was in process when 2 members of the team examined my batch. Thinking that we were the first to recognize the text of the War Scroll and finding it interesting, they tried to take it away from me. Nina Shore writes, This is a unique lab, the only one of its kind, established to conserve the Dead Sea Scrolls for future generations. The feeling that we're standing before pieces of history, our heritage, makes me feel that I've been given a great privilege. Greg Berman writes, I believe that using spectrophotography, we will succeed to determine the amount of water present in the parchment from which the scrolls are made. Professor William Seals writes, We're reading a real scroll that hasn't been read for millennia. Many thought it was probably impossible to read. The traditional approach of removing a folio from its binding or unrolling a scroll and pressing it flat to read it simply will not work. These fragile manuscripts that have been burned and crushed into lumps of disintegrated charcoal. Through a series of digitization techniques we employed, it is possible to see ink-based text while avoiding the need for physical handling. Dr. Orrin Abelman writes, When comparing the text preserved in the newly discovered fragments to the text known to us from other versions, numerous differences are notable, some of which were quite surprising. These differences can tell us quite a bit regarding the transmission of the biblical text, documenting the changes that occur over time. Professor Noam Mizrahi writes, For me, who has conducted many years of research on the texts inscribed on the scrolls, studying their content, language, scribble features, I was amazed to see how much information can be gleaned by analyzing the biological material from which the scrolls are made.
And emphatic. These were the most significant manuscripts ever discovered.
What Canada did was to divide the scrolls into two lots, two groups. One group of 4 scrolls he offered for sale to the head of the Syrian Orthodox Church in Jerusalem. He purchased those 4 scrolls from Canada for the sum of 24 British pounds sterling.
There's been virtually unrolled scrolls that haven't been read since they were hidden away 2 millennia ago. These remarkable documents have survived wars, climate, and time itself. Through modern science and careful preservation, they will continue to bridge past and present, offering invaluable insights into the foundations of Western civilization.
Leaving notes in the cracks of the Western Wall is considered a deeply rooted custom, with evidence of the practice dating back centuries. The Western Wall is one of the world's most sacred sites. This ancient limestone wall is the last remaining section of Jerusalem's Second Temple complex, holding profound significance for Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. A cherished tradition dating back to the 18th century invites visitors to place written prayers between the wall's stones. These notes, expressing personal hopes and requests, are collected twice yearly and buried on the Mount of Olives.